hello to everybody that's watching this recording. We're joined by Surya today, who is the founder of a stealth mode startup called Argonaut, which we're going to talk about more a little bit later on. Prior to this, Surya comes from a product management background, so having led a number of initiatives for data strategy, ecosystem, analytics, you name it, it's all there for you to see on his LinkedIn. Someone actually that's been commended for his product management, user experience, and A/B testing skills. So really interested to have you on today, and welcome.
It's great to be here, Joe.
Good. So let's start with you then, Surya. Obviously, I gave a really brief intro there, but do you want to just tell the people watching who you are and what you're here to talk about today?
Would love to. I'm Surya, founder of Argonaut, and to talk a little bit about my journey here. I worked at a whole string of small companies, startups primarily, working heavily with tech. Now, the only exception to this has been Microsoft, which I started my career with, and then some common themes that I had actually seen at a lot of these places that I'd worked at, right? They stood out to me, and that there were huge inefficiencies that I saw, right? So things like the amount of time that is spent by engineering teams to just build out routine stuff, right? CI pipelines, deployments, and so on, managing infrastructure. So yeah, just looking at all of this, I saw that there were huge inefficiencies, and digging deeper into the problem, like Kubernetes showed up as this knight in shining armor.
De facto now.
Yeah. That's basically what got me looking into the whole Kubernetes ecosystem a little deeper, and over the process of just working to implement such solutions, and having led product teams in a bunch of these places, I have a pretty good understanding of what it means to be a consumer of these platforms, as well as having built versions of these out, right? So with a lot of this experience put together, I thought I'd dive deeper into solving for this particular problem, and that's what led me to Argonaut.
Love it. So it's basically born from the idea where you've seen how things can be done better.
Right. So how things can be done better, and more importantly, what we have in the form of Kubernetes and the entire ecosystem is a bunch of really powerful capabilities, right? These capabilities still need to be put together into workflows that can be consumed by a product team, a product engineering team, right? So coming at it not from a Kubernetes engineering angle, but from the view of, hey, how does this experience need to look like for this to be taken up by teams more broadly, for adoption, for just easy usage and maintenance, right? So how does that world look like? So having a really good understanding of that and attacking the problem from that perspective is what led me here.
Excellent. Okay, so obviously it's still stealth mode at the moment. Obviously we'll talk about that a bit more in a minute in terms of what's ahead for you in 2021. But in terms of the reaction to it so far, I'm sure you've gone out and done some research. You've spoken to certain people, whether it's friends, family, investors, former peers. What's the reaction been like to Argonaut so far?
So it's been super positive, right? From multiple angles. So let me break that down into a couple of different facets. Firstly, during the course of before I'd started off full-time on this, right? I was talking to a whole bunch of companies, small and large. Now, the really interesting thing here is, while Kubernetes has huge benefits, primarily for the larger end of the spectrum in terms of companies, complexity, etc. Increasingly, every company in the software space that I've talked to, which is over a year old, has strongly considered using Kubernetes at least, and in many cases they've actually actively started working on it. right? So so firstly, there is the adoption. We are just going to see an exponential adoption going forward from on this front. The second factor here is earlier there used to be like a lot of friction and a lot of concern in terms of complexity. Now that is reducing, right? So that's again huge and enables a lot of companies like Argonaut to actually enter this space and serve small companies as well as large ones, right? The entire space is open now. The third thing is a very explicit understanding from the entire startup ecosystem as well as the investor ecosystem that this is a really hot space, and and the amount of value and opportunity that it can generate both for companies as well as for like startups like mine which are catering to these software teams. It's huge, right? So there's a lot of inbound interest as well, which is really encouraging to see.
Yeah, I think, you know what, when you talk about Kubernetes being one of the tools that is really helping to solve a problem, the amount of conversations I have with people, and they say when it comes to software development tooling, when it comes to software development lifecycle, the amount of tools and the amount of things out there, it just blows your mind a lot of the time. Companies don't know what is the best tool for what. They don't know how to implement the tools. They don't know how to go from A to B. So I think when Kubernetes has come along and its, you know, its popularity has risen over the last 12, 24 months, I think it's really starting to show now, especially over in the US market where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And the complexity is huge. So if you look at the Cloud Native Compute Foundation, they actually have a whole chart, and right at the top they say, hey, if this is intimidating, please don't get intimidated. Here's an easier version for you to check out, right? So it's actually a very interesting take on this. And then there is this other website which actually talks about the DevOps periodic system, a periodic table, right? Which essentially groups all of these DevOps tools by some other classification, and then just lists out like 100 of these, right? So it's super hard to figure out what exactly is the best fit for your use case. And as a company, you really want to be moving, like especially a small one, you really want to be moving fast instead of actually spending cycles trying to set such systems up and just getting them to work, right?
Yeah.
Essentially, you're a domain expert in your business area, but then all of these are like significant distractions, like super essential and like super powerful, right? Like amazing tools, but it's still a distraction from your core business. Now, that's actually something that I would is square in the sides of what Argonaut is trying to achieve, and which is only enabled by the Kubernetes ecosystem, right? Because of the ease with which it helps, it helps deployments, the declarative nature of how you can set things up, and which essentially enable the next wave of compute abstractions, the way I think about it.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess for someone like you who's at such an early stage and you're using Kubernetes as kind of, you know, you're building a product and a company around Kubernetes, I guess you're making a lot of use of the open source community. I mean, the Kubernetes community is probably one of the most collaborative communities I've ever known.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been super helpful. I don't think we'd be able to make any close to this amount of progress in a short amount of time if it were not for the entirely open ecosystem, right? Now, that's across multiple fronts, both having tools which enable this, the entire Kubernetes itself, which is open source and makes programming against it super easy, with very rich set of APIs and capabilities, right? So something that's actually something that I'm very cognizant about, and I intend to not just be a sync but also a collaborator in some sense. Like one of the things that is there in the immediate 6-month plan is actually to see how we can make we can partner with you know uh, s- these kind of providers in the ecosystem, um, be it on the observability side or on the serving side, whatever it is,
Yeah.
and make it really easy for users to adopt these technologies, right? So while there exist Helm charts and so on that are already prepackaged, they still need a significant amount of wrangling to understand how they're configured, how they're structured, and mm, get it to work with the rest of your system, because it doesn't exist in isolation. Now, that's actually something that I want to make really easy. And also, it's one way of contributing back to the ecosystem, basically making sure that the adoption of any tool is super simple, right? That also has second order knock-on effects, like um, just promoting healthy competition. Like the best tool is something that you can evaluate very quickly, and b get started with as and it just ends up winning, which is like a benefit for both the user and the provider. So that's a huge like major aspect for that ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. So take us back to just before you joined Argonaut. So what are some of the common themes that you've seen at former places? Because you've already mentioned a couple, and you've already mentioned how Argonaut got started, born of an idea of, doing things better and everything
Yeah.
you mentioned. But what about some of the common themes you've seen at previous places where you've worked?
Yeah, great question, really. So I can talk about it in multiple ways, but let me just start with the simplest version. Um, so no matter what the underlying system, like orchestration mechanism, or um, even before you have an orchestration mechanism, the evolution of how internal platforms evolve for deployments, management, etc., right, is fairly thematic. It just there's a reasonably um, a reasonable trajectory that you can, a reasonably representative trajectory that you can draw out, right? The first is when you're like a two people thing, you just end up deploying to production all the time, right? There is no notion of different environments. There's no notion of having rigorous deployment processes, rollbacks. All of these things are just you have two people, they know everything about the system, and they just go click click click, done.
Yeah.
Right? And it's usually something like if you're on the Amazon ecosystem, it's like an EC2 or an ECS that you would use, or a Heroku kind of solution is what you would be using at this stage, right? Very soon you outgrow the whole EC2 related deployments and Heroku type deployments for both cost reasons as well as increasing complexity, right? So at that point, there is this notion of multiple environments that will come up, and there's also a lot more collaborative work that needs to happen, which comes with the culture and the associated processes within the organization, right? How do you want to deploy to production? Is it like Git push and you have a mature testing pipeline, etc., that just takes it to you, takes it forward, or is there like a staged manual criteria for production and automated for the rest of the stuff, so on, right? Now so that's purely around the deployments. And then when it comes to something like environment management, there is uh, certain challenges that always need to be overcome, are like, how do I maintain my environments in sync? How do I make sure that um, changes that I'm making to one environment don't really like translate into the other environments without any differences, right? And that's a significant challenge, because in most places, like before something like Terraform came up, there is no real way of just cloning an environment. There's no way of maintaining sync between environments. Now with Terraform, it is possible, but it's still a lot of work, right? All managing all of these configurations, etc., is again, pretty much a full-time job. And as a small company, you really don't want to be spending too much time doing that, right? And then the evolution of this is essentially larger companies which have the resources to put together internal developer platform teams, and have a robust DevOps process around it as well, product plus process around it, where you have internal dashboards which are sort of catered, which are custom to the nature of the organization, and then the resources, the policy making, the policy decisions that need to be adhered to. All of these factors come in and are built into their internal platforms. Now, which makes the life of the engineers easy, but there are like multiple people working on it for years to build this entire system out.
To get it to where it's at, yeah.
Yeah, so this is like the common evolution that we see. And the brilliant thing that, so earlier it was very divergent, and now it's great because Kubernetes is essentially forming the backbone of this evolution and takes you from like a 2-people company to an internet scale organization, and it just scales seamlessly, right? Now that is the enabler for a whole bunch of value unlock. Engineers spend like 30% of their time, engineering teams spend 30% of their time building out these platforms, right? All of that is a distraction from delivering business value. So that's essentially what we want to be reducing here, and leading to efficiency. To add to that, it's not without its a set of challenges, right? Kubernetes has its own set of challenges that it brings in, especially for new adoption, especially for long-term maintenance also. Now, the way I look at it, there are 3 major facets to the challenges that come with Kubernetes adoption. One is around the product itself, right? Such power, such complexity is it just shows through to the end users, to the application developers, and that needs application developers need to deal with this whole new beast apart from all the other million pieces of software that they need to
like what
with.
we mentioned earlier, yeah.
Right. So and that's a hard challenge, right? That's not something that they're experts at, and which also leads to issues around, hey, things have been configured wrong, so stuff's breaking all the time, and then they need to be kept in sync. So how do we manage those configurations in a standardized manner? What are the best practices here? All of those are again points of discovery, and typically it involves like a lot of copy pasta work where you go to some tutorial, figure out what sticks, and then over a period of time you introduce security into it. Because no one really looks at security from first principle, like day one. Right?
Never.
So all of these are anti-patterns that come up because of the complexity that is associated with the product as well. Right. The second thing is around process. Now, as organizations evolve, there's usually a lot more focus on access control, what kind of activities can be done by specific roles and users, and also like things like templatization, right? Administration of, hey, if I have these kind of services, I want them to run on all regions or some regions, and I want them to run with this kind of compute backing or memory instances or whatever it is, right? So that kind of standardization, which leads to visibility and predictability for cost, for security, for all of these organization-wide objectives, right? So all of those are also an evolution where they should not be. So these are things that need to be there from day one, but just because they can't, they're just pushed off for a later time.
They're always an afterthought.
Exactly. It's a very important thing. It's an organization-wide thing, but you just can't keep so many balls in the air.
Yeah.
So that's the second piece of complexity when it comes to process. The third one is around the fact that every engineering organization has slightly different ways in which they work, right? Preferences of how they want to deploy, when they want to deploy. Some people might just not want to do deploys on Fridays. Some people are like free for all, right? You just deploy whenever you need to, kind of a thing. There are release trains in some other organizations. So there are a wide variety of people processes also that need to be accounted for when we are looking at this entire space, right? Now there's and the third thing is around people. The need for Kubernetes specific talent and this ecosystem is huge, right?
Yeah.
The demand is growing exponentially, and the talent is like just not able to keep up. Like the level of expertise that is required is just not able to keep up. I'm sure you would be able to talk more about that. Like what are your thoughts around this particular area?
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, I conducted a report just on the Boston market 2 weeks ago for Kubernetes talent. And this is people on LinkedIn who had mentioned Kubernetes in either a job title on the LinkedIn profiles or in the skills, and they've been recommended. And from April 2020 up until April now, today, there was 15,000 extra Kubernetes profiles on LinkedIn than there was a year ago. So the talent is rising. But it's not rising in a way whereby people can actually confidently do like a tech test on Kubernetes, for example. These are people that can answer basic questions on Kubernetes because it is something that businesses are introducing. So by default, engineers in a DevOps or a platform engineer or an SRE position will get to work on Kubernetes because the company is introducing it, or they're outsourcing it to a Kubernetes specialist company, and then they're working in tandem with them. But there's nobody in the company really that has that fundamental understanding and knowledge of Kubernetes best practice and how to really explain Kubernetes to the CFO, who is the guy that holds all the budget. And then you're saying to him, this is why we now need Kubernetes, because it's going to solve this problem and this problem. But it's just another software development tool. It's just another expense for a business a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Let me share my screen with you because I actually have some facts and figures here.
So what you actually talked about is very representative of what my anecdotal experience also has been. Basically huge, like everyone wants to deal with Kubernetes. It's coming up as the number 2 hardest job to fill at this point because of both the competition and the lack of talent. And wow, you seem to have a lot more numbers than my anecdotal research.
This is across the whole of the US. This isn't just by state, but you can see that 26% changed jobs in the last 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
You can also see, which I guess is a benefit for you as well, that the biggest location for the talent is in San Francisco.
Yep.
It's 14,000. So yeah, there's some facts and figures there to have a read through, but those numbers are changing, not even weekly. Those numbers are changing daily because of the demand that's in the market now. And we're just looking at the US here. We're not even looking at Europe, Asia, Middle East. This is just the US. So the talent is certainly rising, but I hear what you're saying. It's kind of like, people know they need it, but there's just, what do you do when there's a talent shortage? Do you upskill people? Do you take people on merit if they've got a CKA or CKAD? So it is difficult, but you've got some big companies that are hiring there, like IBM, Amazon, Microsoft. These are the people that have obviously got the most Kubernetes talent in the US. I mean, yeah, they're the biggest companies, but at the same time, they're obviously offering the hands-on training that a lot of people need.
Absolutely. And so again, tying back to your original question of, what is it that, um, what are my experiences having dealt with a bunch of these different areas, right? Trying to work with teams which have built these sort of systems out. Again, as a consumer. So these three broad areas have consistently come up as really hard challenges for an organization, and especially at a small company, the amount of resources that need to go in to actually do a good job of solving for each of these is very high and hard, right? So which is what directly sort of led to me thinking deeper about this particular problem, and how essentially we can provide this higher level of abstraction, right? So that application engineers can directly consume and work with these systems without having to go through the entire setup, maintenance, management processes. And also hopefully will free up your engineering constraints, where you don't have to, like, starting on day one, you don't have to look for a Kubernetes expert, right? You'll get there, but it essentially unlocks this whole market of people who can't afford that but can still get onto this sort of a train, and eventually when they increase in complexity and so on, they can get the right talent in, right? So essentially this underserved market of small medium-sized companies to begin with, and then making the same job easier for even the larger organizations is actually where Argonaut squarely lies.
Excellent. So that actually brings me on to my next question about Argonaut. So what's the plan for 2021? By December, by the time we're all celebrating a new year, what do you want to achieve between now and the end of the year for Argonaut?
Great question. So let me talk about it in like a couple of phases, right? The first on the product front, immediately over the next few weeks, we want to be launching a self-serve version so that anyone can just onboard with our platform and just work with it, right? Without having to have any of this expertise, custom knowledge, etc. Just a two-people shop can start leveraging the power without the added complexity that Kubernetes brings on, right? So that's to start with, and then over a longer period of time, like while we'll be starting with one major cloud provider supported, we'll expand out in terms of multi-cloud capabilities, as well as more deeper integrations with the rest of the ecosystem, where let's say we have the observability stack. How can we make Argonaut the center of all of these different integrations so that your entire workflow is within Argonaut, and the deeper tasks are done through each of these integrations. Let's say you want to, your application is facing some issues and you want to dig deeper into the logs. Now, the control panel within Argonaut will tell you that, hey, there are some issues. And now if you want to dig deeper, you just go from within Argonaut and in context with deep integrations into each of these tools and tool stacks of your choice. Let's say you want to use a Datadog or a Grafana or whatever, right? So we'll basically have deeper integrations with these tools so that you can you don't have to dig through a lot of CRUD, and you'll directly get to what insights you want to be looking at, right? So which essentially ties in again neatly with the entire value proposition of Argonaut, which I've just realized we haven't really talked about, right? The value proposition is to make is to have a central workflow management and collaboration platform for engineers and DevOps folks to just work to just automate everything, all their day-to-day activities, so that they can look at more of administrative tasks instead of the engineering focus, right? So essentially, setting up, management, maintenance, all of that is taken care of for you. Now you just tell what you require out of each of these platforms and capabilities and tools, and we'll get that done, right? So that's the layer of abstraction that we want to be working with. So essentially, clone environment is like a first-class citizen, as an example, right? Modifying an environment, figuring out your diffs between two environments is a first-class citizen, because those are the activities that you actually want to be doing. The rest of it is detail, right? And then deployments, rollbacks, how you want to manage your deployments. Like, do you want a canary? Do you want to A/B test? So all of those are again first-class citizens, where you just mention, you just pick what you need, and the system takes care of the detail, right? The key factor here, however, is ensuring that the users still have sufficient control, and they can make, modify, change, edit, whatever, right?
So would this integrate into an existing business's infrastructure as like an add-on or a plugin?
Yes. So so to begin with, we will be looking at new setups, but within the next few months, we want to, like, obviously plugging into existing setups and directly dealing with the systems that they already have in place, not just the Kubernetes, parts, but the entire cloud infrastructure, right? Let's say you have an S3 bucket or an RDS instance or whatever. So all of these also need to be completely within the same, dashboard and the same view, so that you have a complete understanding of what your environment looks like and have control over it, right? So with Kubernetes as the center, the rest of the cloud resources around it, providing the right level of abstraction so that engineers can just work with the abstraction of their requirement rather than what the tool provides, right? So that's the difference. Again, key factor, the choice of stack, the choice of tools, and complete control, both in terms of having the configurations available for engineers to use, view, review, see, apply, as well as modify. All of these are extremely critical, and that's again like a core component of what we're building, essentially making sure everything is modular yet integrated.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, look, I mean, it's for me, it's an exciting market to be in. I think Kubernetes this year is going to far outweigh the advancements that we saw last year. So last year, it kind of blew up and people were kind of talking about it in such a positive way. And this year, already in Q1, I feel like we've surpassed the amount of investment into the Kubernetes and cloud native market than we did in much of last year. So I feel like it's the right time to be getting into this market. So I wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you so much. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it today. So just before we log off, where can everybody find you if they have any follow-up questions?
So right now I'm on Twitter. I'm fairly active on Twitter. It's Surya Oruganti. We can put a link below. And the website is at https argonaut.dev. It's currently a little behind the times, but it'll soon be refreshed.
Excellent. Well, like I said, I wish you all the best of luck. I'll let you get back and enjoy the sun in sunny California, and I'll catch up with you soon, no doubt.
Thank you so much. Wish you the luck as well.
Brilliant. Have a great day. Cheers, Surya.
Bye.
Bye.